beach, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Our
Cool.
next guest on today's Big Blend Radio's Nature Connection show is Tanna Frederick. Now, Tanna, we met her at the end of the
Mm.
year of end of 2020 with her film Two Ways Home. You guys
Mm.
got to go check it out. It's streaming everywhere.
Dude,
Go get
so
it. Go get
good.
it. It deals with mental health. It's an awesome
So
film.
good.
And it also deals with, showcases her home state, which is Iowa. So that's interesting because we're bringing her on the show to talk about the ocean and cleaning the ocean. And she's from Iowa. Apparently, she's an Iowan surfer. Her nonprofit that she founded is called Project Save Our Surf. And
I
we
love
saw
it.
that as we were getting her on the show. We were like, oh, she's into conservation. She's like one of our buddies already. So we had to bring her back on the show to talk about what she's doing with Project Save Our Surf. You can keep up with them at psosurf.onuniverse.com, mostly on IG or Instagram, Facebook, all of that. But welcome back, Tanna. How are you?
I'm great with an intro like that. What can I say? And being on the show with you two is just fantastic. And wow, what a great lead up. That was fascinating and wonderful to see the work that National Geographic Kids is doing.
I think it's so cool what they're doing with the kids, and because it's
I
not
love
just the
it.
book, and the books are awesome, but they're getting it's the interaction, and I think that also goes into what you're doing with Project Save Our Surf. It's not like, hey, everybody give money and we'll do this. It's interactive. We have to have action.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. It's great to be able to give back and build these relationships within communities, especially with children, because they really are the stewards of our future. So that's such an important element. And then connecting the kids to their leaders and who they look up to is so important, and getting them to take action and sort of grow into these very conscientious adults.
And so, tell us a little bit about you're from Iowa. What are you doing in the ocean? Let's stop there.
That was funny.
Let's
just start there.
That's so
You grew
funny.
up with cornfields. How'd you get in the ocean?
I'm just like, now I see Kevin Costner in the cornfields playing
I
baseball.
know.
Field of Dreams. She's surfing her dreams.
That's the first thing you do when you get out of the cornfield
that...
is head to the ocean.
Yeah, you're like, wait, there's actually water somewhere? Oh my
Yeah,
God, I
exactly.
live in a landlocked state. There's like water and mountains. Yeah, that's amazing. So it was totally fascinating for me to move out to California because one of the beautiful things being a struggling actress about living in Los Angeles is that you have the ocean at your fingertips. I mean, you do have a really great backyard when you move there. And as much as pain you can go through as trying to make it to the top of your profession, or even get work and put food on the table, is that you have the ocean right there. So in 2009, it was fascinating to me to be right next to the ocean, especially since I don't even think I saw the ocean until I was 16, maybe. So that's a lot of time that that's a lot of time that I needed catching up on. Exactly.
Wow.
And totally. I mean, I think the place that I saw closest to the ocean was Lake Superior. And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't see across it. And then you get out to this beautiful environment with hiking trails and deserts and palm trees and and then getting to know the ecosystem of the ocean. It was like a beautiful a beautiful trip. It was mind-blowing. It was such a treasure. It was such a treasure. And so I started surfing, I believe, in 2004, and then just started to become aware of the surf culture, because obviously when you start, I think a lot of people, when they start surfing and they start surfing correctly, if they have a good teacher and they don't just try to do it themselves. And
in other words, your ass is not up in the air. Your ass is not
right.
like. I'm just
Exactly.
saying.
You have a good experience.
So
exactly. You might have had
So
some
funny.
experience with that, I think.
And your knees hurt.
Yeah, totally.
You can't really stand up on the board.
And everybody can
if
see.
You're not like,
they know.
if you haven't made a complete, donkey of yourself out in the water, then you might. I took lessons right away, and I just loved it. And I was just one of those people who I wanted to do nothing else except surf, and became such a surf head.
But awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, how does that rate for
ahead.
you, like with body surfing versus on the board surfing?
Well, I'm kind of fortunate because I think if I had just body surfed, which I hadn't had an experience, I went straight to surfing, I might have thought body surfing was easier. So I went to surfing and kind of took it the hard way. It was like driving a stick shift first before automatic, right?
I identify
so by
with
the
this.
time I got to
identify. Yeah. I identify because I grew up in South Africa, like in my teens, right? And
right.
And I lived in Port Elizabeth, which is right outside Jeffreys Bay, one of the top surf spots in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so my friend said, well, let's teach you, we're going to go paddleboarding, which I don't know, is kayaking here, I think. And I tried to do, and then they were trying to get me to learn the art of surfing, and no matter what happened, I ended up hugging the board and showing my ass to everybody on the pier. So like they at that point, how young I was, and I was better looking at that point, they could charge, get money in on that, because no matter what, here it was. But there it is. But it was so, there's something about that connection with the ocean that it really doesn't matter if you're windsurfing, body surfing, swimming, but when you're out in the ocean, and I've been an ocean baby, and I'm missing it so bad.
I know.
When you go out there,
right?
And by the way, going to Lake Erie, which we did this year, blew my mind. It reminded me of
cool.
Lake Tanzania was like that. Lake Tanzania is huge, right? Yeah. Lake Erie blew our minds away. Like I felt like I was at the beach.
Cool.
People are skipping rocks, though that's a little different. But I didn't know that was a thing. But the lakes in the Midwest are a whole different deal. But the ocean is like this. It's a whole other. It's an animal. Like it's like this living, breathing. Suck it in, suck it out. And you really know humility no matter what you're doing there. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're having a picnic and it decides I'm going to like just take you out now. It is about humility and also beauty, and I don't know. And I think surfers, there's a thing about when you go out that it teaches you every time you go out about the magnificence of nature and the importance. There's a lesson every time and a connection.
Absolutely. Every single time. I've learned so much from being a surfer about patience, about life, about tenacity, about relaxation and anxiety. There's been so many times where I've gotten caught under a big set, and that whole thing of releasing yourself when I've been caught under like a huge set and you can't breathe, and then you're taught by other surfers that you have to just relax your body and release yourself, because when you fight, I've fought before, then you suddenly hit the ground and you realize that you're hitting sand and you have no breath left. But if you just relax yourself and you float back up to the top. And it's just about acknowledgement of something bigger than you. I think humility is the best thing that it teaches, and respect for the waves, respect for the tide, respect for the moon sequences, respect for everything that's underneath you that you might, the water clarity, for everything. It's one of the biggest teachers that I've had.
it kind of comes down to, are you trying to conquer something or live within it? They're part of it,
right?
or are you trying to conquer it? Like, are you really going to conquer the ocean? Come on, seriously?
Exactly.
You're conquering it. You're lucky to be able to surf with it and be part of it. So
isn't that a beautiful
I think
thing?
yeah,
So many of the pro surfers that I've seen, the way that they relax and they just dance with the waves versus when you see somebody who's starting out who is trying to conquer it and fighting it and getting mad.
Not.
It's and then that look, and that look of when you meet surfers, and what I think is a cliche of the surf personality. They are just zen because they are out in the water, learning about how small they are and how much they respect the ocean, and life seems sort of inconsequential compared, I think, for me, that's been my personal experience, to this great, beautiful body of water and the ecosystem that it holds. It's a huge life checker. You're just checked when you're in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, checkmate. Okay.
Well, yeah, the way I can compare it is like I do mountain passes, which scare the crap out of me. Scare the absolute crap out of me. Bridges,
Boy, you
all
scare
of that.
me because you're so scared. I'm on the right side. I'm like,
I'm ready
I
to.
want out.
I will pee in my pants and stop the car here, but I don't. I put Bob Marley on and I go.
I'm like,
But it's
oh,
like,
dude.
but there is something, this thing where you also find it epically beautiful and you're going to do it. Like there's this it's like a love-hate thing, but it's not a hate. I don't want to use the word hate. There's this like
it's
it's a challenge.
exploration, man. Come on.
Yeah, because when you go out in the ocean, it's when I was a kid, not even a teenager yet. We lived in a place in South Africa called Port Elizabeth, I don't know if it's called Natal now, but it's in the south coast. And there was a place in Shelly Beach, and it was really shelly because there was a lot of rocks and everything. However, believe it or not, was one of the top places for great white sharks because it was a colder climate. I don't know what was going on, but this was white shark central. And I was told never to go in the water without Nancy and la 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 la. And of course, what did I do? Whenever I could sneak out, I snuck out, and I went out as far as I could, just out of, is a shark gonna get me? And then I would scare the bejesus out of myself, like seriously. And I don't think I've ever said that in my life. But she's from Iowa, so I said it.
I love it.
I don't know. I've never said that like for years. Like anyway, crap. It's so scared I would scare myself and go further each time in this weird, crazy dare of the shark. And this, you knew on the certain, I get the undercurrents. There were these tunnels because of the rocks and the way the surf was at that place. Like you couldn't surf there. You would crash in the rocks immediately. It was this weird thing, and I had this, like, it's not like a death drive, but this thing of I'm going out there, and I would come back with my little thing of rocks too. Like I'd go in there and scoop, the sand and find shells, which were crazy because they were all broken because of the rocks. But I would go out, do that, and then I'd go, oh yeah, well now I'm going to go out and just go out, and I would go out each time a little further. It was this weird game I played, and I don't know what I was doing, but it was like a death game. But it made me.
I know you were trying to make your place in the world.
It really was this thing. That's the closest thing I can say about surfing. That was where you are at the elements. And it's about you and the elements, and you either they're gonna take you out no matter what, if they want to.
Yeah.
No, I think it's not. They're gonna take you out. They're gonna challenge you.
Oh yeah, but they could take you out.
They're gonna challenge you, and then you have to bring your your stuff to the table.
I was addicted to
Like
doing that.
the elements will always challenge us. Do you have the right to be
I
here?
snuck out a ton to do
What's
that.
your right to be here? You know,
I
they're going to challenge us.
I
So
was
you
so
go out in
addicted
the
to that.
ocean. If you go out in the ocean, then you have to make your peace with the ocean. You have to be part of it, or you're going to challenge it. You go out in the ocean, you want to, okay, big surf waves like Jeffreys Bay in South Africa. Now, you know, if you can't swim, you probably shouldn't do that. You know,
Right,
you
right,
probably shouldn't do it.
right.
But if you're a swimmer and you know how to dive under the waves and deal with the undercurrents, then you can get a high off that. Like I did that, you know, which we have done. So you go out there and you're like and then you're like, okay, I'm getting tossed and turned, even though you're under the water, not on top of the water, surfing. You're under the water and you're being tossed and turned, and you're like, hey man, this is cool, you know.
There,
Right.
This is so
I love
cool.
the
And then you
water
serve it.
under your nose when it
Yeah,
goes up
and
your
you
Which
nose.
is
serve
so
it, and you're
beautiful, like you said, like it's at an informative age, which
mm,
I think the Australians call it what they have a walkabout, but it's at
Yeah.
I don't know even know what age that is, but but you're at such an informative age when you could have been seeking that death wish from drugs or from I don't know, driving fast on a freeway or something like that, but instead
was
you're out
seeking
there
sharks,
with the
man.
ocean. Yeah, I mean it's that there is something very sacred about that relationship to yourself and the ocean that you found at such a beautifully young age that you couldn't have sought, I think, with any other natural element. I mean, you probably could with snowboarding or taking some
Hiking.
sort
yes.
of hiking, exactly.
You're
right.
at that age where you're going to go, oh, I'm going to challenge nature, and nature's going to go, oh yeah, come on, baby, but I'll teach you. But
challenge.
nature was it's
experience.
that coming of age. It's like Nancy,
Right.
you worked with lions in Africa and Kenya,
Yeah.
and people going like stop killing the lion at 13 years old. That's how we ended up in Africa. With you doing, I don't know if you know, Nancy used to work with Joy Adamson, of Born Free, the actual Joy Adamson real lady, not Virginia McKenna. But that's, well, no, she was the actor of that. Yeah, that's how we ended up in Africa. So we lived in the bush for many years. Well, not many years, a couple of years.
Yeah, we
so
did.
Nancy
8 or
went
9
around
years.
teaching tribes, like, hello, can you stop killing lions for your 13-year-old killed the lion manhood thing, which that went well, right, Nancy?
Well, no, that's okay. Let me put it this way. It was oh boy.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the hint of sarcasm with that
I know,
went well,
because,
right?
Yeah, because it is funny.
The reading.
No,
the reading
it was
was
an
like
effort. It was an effort to keep people from killing lions on site, whether or not they did anything wrong, because they're part of Africa and they're apex species that needs to be there before everything else gets out of control and eats all your crops. Just saying.
Except for the sharks and
I see. I see that. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
No, I mean that's simple though. That's quite simple, but that makes so much that
it's
that
really
kind of,
hard.
Yeah, you mess with one level, you get the trickle down effect of rodents destroying the crops. That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and so they were like, okay, this is going to happen. I'm going to take out this species. I'm like, well, if you take out that species over there, it's going to totally annihilate your crops. So you might want to rethink it. Yeah,
You can't destroy one level without affecting another level.
Exactly.
And that's,
So let's talk about Project save our surf.
Save our
so
surf.
you get out there from Iowa, start surfing. Yeah, surfing. Now you go
surfing,
like, okay.
And I just noticed that all of the surfers took, and I was taught this: surfers, like kids, should be stewards of the ocean as they get older. The surfers were the stewards of the ocean, and they very quietly and gallantly and elegantly would take everything that they saw, the garbage floating, and they just stuff it into their sleeves. Just as simple as that, you know. And they always left their backyard cleaner than they found it, so to speak. And that is something I think I learned growing up on farmlands in Iowa, is respecting your backyard, respecting your land, because that is going to yield next year's crops. I think that I learned that in Girl Scouts too, probably.
Yeah.
When I was like very little. But yeah, so I just noticed that the surfers would do that. They weren't asking for any sort of recognition of that. It was just something that they did because they were using the ocean and they wanted to keep it clean and pristine for their next usage. And so I just started doing I wanted to create an organization that was run by surfers, and then by that trickled down into the community to do outreach programs for kids and really support and start to bring together all of the, because there's so many environmental organizations in California, and sort of be an umbrella organization that raised money for different organizations, brought both surfers and civilians together, because surfers do know so much about the ocean, being out there all the time, and brought artists and ocean conservationists together, and then we were able to just sort of celebrate the ocean, and also to focus on, I think, have a very optimistic view of the environment, because it can get so overwhelming. You know, it can get so overwhelming to hear so many bad, scary things about what can happen. But when you, sometimes with an outlook, when you celebrate, and when you, I think that really good things can spill out from celebration and saying, this is what we have, and we have hope, and we have a positive future. Sometimes things can come from that. And so I really wanted to especially do a water filter program, and bring fresh water to globally. This is what my initiative was, to do water filtration programs. And then while doing that, to sort of address these teens that, like you said, when you were journeying out to find the sharks and the broken shells, these teens that were mega ripping to be the ones to go into these villages and to set up the water filtration programs, because God knows that they are the ones who need to feel like leaders. They are the ones who need to feel that they have some sort of
You're really
agency.
right about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really right about that.
Thank you.
That's what stopped
and they
me
did.
from being
They
an
went
asshole
out.
as a kid. When I was an asshole as a kid, Nancy had a magazine in South Africa, and her art director said, give her some responsibility. And it was true. As soon as she gave me responsibility, I stopped being an asshole. I'm sorry. Did I say asshole on the show? Sorry. But it's true. It's true.
That should have been my whole, like, raison d'etre for Project Save Our Surf. I'm just trying to stop your kids from being assholes, man.
No, but I was being one.
Actually,
I mean, that's
but yeah,
your kids are doing that.
Okay, but I'm going to take it a step further and say I'm going to try to keep your parents from being assholes.
Oh.
Well, no,
this is why I love being on the show with you guys.
Oh, boy. No, because if you look at the state and the true and we're doing it this way because we've always done it this way while the world marches on. Come on, people. You can't do things the way you've always done them because the world marches on. Things change.
And we're allowed to say asshole because, you know what? We're in 2021 and damn, we need to say it.
You can say that.
It's just rolls off the tongue.
So
it's just rolls off the tongue.
I don't know.
I mean, come on. Come on.
Seriously, get with the program,
really,
people.
But it was really beautiful to see these kids who were in 16, 17, 18 that were getting ready to go to college, or maybe up and down the coast be fishermen or decide their futures and say, here you go. Here's the bucket. Yeah. Guess what you're going to do? We're going to find sponsors for you. You're going to go to South Africa, South America, Vietnam, Mexico, and you guys are going to go into the schools. You're going to talk to these little children there.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize how big this was.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to help you raise the money, but you guys are going to, and you're going to get a week of surfing in some great ways, and we're going to help you to raise money to fly out there. But during that time, you're going to, these little kids in these villages that can't afford, that are sourcing water from dirty rivers, from that they're cleaning in, they're bathing in, they have their animal runoff going into. You guys are going to go and be rock stars to these kids because you're surfers, and you're going to teach them how to set up this water filtration system. And these kids, I watched them change so hardcore. Yeah. I mean, these guys really could have been assholes. They turned into such beautiful young men, and just watching them interface with these villages, and watching them glean this confidence and this sense of change that they were creating and difference that they were making in the lives of these poverty-stricken villages, and watching in the simplicity of drinking water. Wow. It was the best thing that I've ever done with my life.
See, this is so interesting. Like in Kenya, I was hired as a school teacher. I didn't have credentials to be a school teacher, but I'm white, and
but I'm sure they needed you, right?
And so I taught school kids. It was the best thing I ever did. It was so much fun because I was like relating to, I think, 8 or 9 year olds, and I was teaching them English. My English
that's wonderful.
No, it was really funny. And I don't even know why I had that job. They just like, oh, could you come do that? I'm like, sure, why not? And it was fun, and I learned way more than the kids did, I'm sure. But
probably, yeah.
Because I was like, okay, this is really weird how this country will take me with no credentials to be a school teacher, but then I could speak English, to teach English to their kids. I'm like, oh, and then at first I thought that's funny. I'll do it, and then the responsibility hit me like heavy. Like after the second, third day, like, oh man. And then it was like scared to go into class because I'm like, I'm not qualified to do this. And then 3 days later, I'm like, I'm so qualified to do this because I'm not strapped down with a whole bunch of rules. I know how to speak English. I know how to spell. So I can do this.
Absolutely. They just need advocates. These kids in different countries just need somebody to be there. And within our own country, just need somebody to be there and to symbolize their care.
I love what you're also doing, that you're doing, cleanup projects on the beach, right? And then you're looking at clean water, and because that is where people don't make that connection so often. It's so important. We were just talking, with National Geographic Kids about kids versus plastic, and what happens in landfills ends up in the ocean, ends up in our waterways. It is all connected. The soil, the rivers, the streams, and the ocean, it's all connected, and it even comes right out of your toilet, right down through everything.
Well, but that is a huge thing. So another thing that I learned from the surfers that instigated starting a nonprofit was that while you're out surfing, I remember one day saying, gosh, the water tastes like cucumber. What is up? And the surfers were like, yeah, that's a sewage.
Wow.
I was like, what?
Wow.
That was very like an Iowan response. Really? And that's, you learn about when it rains, you've got to stay out 72 hours. And it tastes like cucumber. And if you're a hardcore jumper, you say screw it and you go out anyway. But it's you learn things like this and what days, when the first rain of the year is going to be, and when you're going to find toilet paper and condoms floating in the water because because it's so nasty. But that's just things that you learn, and that people don't know who are even living there and right next to the ocean.
Well, I want
to learn.
I think this is really important about living next to the ocean. So at the same time, we in Tucson, Arizona, no ocean, but kind of down like a few hundred, miles, you'll find the ocean in Rocky Beach in Mexico. We had what was a wastewater project, and so a lot of cities are doing this. It's called Sweetwater, and then when we were in Gainesville, Florida last year, we find another Sweetwater, right? And so you see this wastewater coming in, and then they're changing the wastewater and clearing it, and also using this thing as a wetlands preserve. Both places called Sweetwater,
great.
and I'm going to do a show on this. I really have to do. It's like Sweetwater in Tucson, Sweetwater in Florida, and at the same time, back in the day, there was Sweetwater band that was badass back in the Woodstock days. But anyway,
yes,
so cool. A really good band. There was a documentary years ago about them. But anyway, so this when we went to Florida, like in Tucson, we would see all these ducks come in, and this regenerative process they like all the reeds would come in, they would burn them, all these plants would come in, the plants would come in, but all these wintering birds, this became like a hot spot for birders to come see the birders, but actually the more important thing, a destination for birds to land and have an oasis in an industrial park area that you wouldn't think. It was insane.
Wow.
Insane. So we'd go there all the time. But now in Gainesville, Florida, same thing. Out of nowhere, here it is. But you would see gators. We saw gators. We did our whole hike. We had wine with gators. But anyway, don't tell anybody. And we did this
that's
whole,
lovely. That's a good way. That's great.
But there's this hike. There's this whole thing. And at the same time, you are on both places seeing what's going on with the water and the waves coming in. We're seeing where the waves is coming in, and we're like, holy crap. And then we're seeing the gators near the waves. We're like, move, gator, move to the hinges.
Here's the thing.
But this is the thing. It is interesting about what is going on with our waves and our water, and these places are letting us see what is happening, and also the real thing. They're trying to do the right thing through these cities, and I want to do shows on it. But at the same time, you are seeing how bad it is.
Here's the thing. When you open these areas for people to go appreciate them, okay? Because you need people to appreciate them to save them. At the same time, the people who go there appreciate them are the same people, sometimes, not all of them, who throw their waste, okay, in the river, on the land, and sometimes when we see this happen, we're like, do we go say something or do we not? Because you don't want a confrontation. And it's like, do they understand? Do they not? How can you not understand this day and age that is wrong? But then, it's a thing.
I feel that. That's something that when I started. So just one thing that we do is a beach cleanup on every second Saturday of the month, obviously not during the pandemic, but I remember when we started and we had just me and my two friends doing it. And you know what Saturdays in Santa Monica are like with you know, people packing on the beach, 400
it's
people.
Party time.
And we're down there. It's party time. It's family day. Everybody's come from LA County or further just to be on the beautiful Santa Monica beaches. It's a very socioeconomic, comfortably, you know, fairly wealthy area, of affluent area. And so when we first just started taking these buckets down on the beach and just cleaning, we'd put up our tent, we'd blast some music, like you're saying, like, you know, we got the reggae going, and we bring free food, and we're like, whoever wants to clean with us, come on down and help us out. But do you know how many people would look so annoyed? And this is just kind of a social commentary. So people would be so annoyed as if we were disturbing their day at the beach while we're down there picking up mostly exactly. And a lot of people would come up and say, why are you cleaning it up? The beach looks really, also those would be the comments, the beach looks completely clean. And it's the microscopic, I'd explain, it's the microscopic, tiny pieces of plastic, but some microplastics, which coagulate in the 5 gyres of the ocean, and we're trying to stop those from going in and, you know, getting in sea turtles' mouths, blah, blah, blah. People really looked annoyed. And then by leading by example, by keeping going, by just showing up every second Saturday, gradually we started to get more and more college kids. And I'm saying this not to show off for Project Save Our Surf or a beach cleanup. I'm just saying what I have noticed, because the nonprofit world is so hard, and because environmentalism can be so touchy. It can be so touchy that by continuing to do this for a year and a half, gradually we started to have 50 to 100 people come through. And that was a huge, and it was by smiling.
That's
giving,
amazing.
And not everybody, that's not the attitude that everybody's going to want to take, but this is just what I noticed from running a nonprofit for however many years now, 13 years, that by smiling, by taking sort of a high road and just doing the job, bringing free food, you know, maybe having mimosas, like the wine and gator, you know, pizza, mimosas, having the music and making it a good time. More and more people showed up and started bringing their kids to the beach to, you know, for the cleanup versus a day at the beach for leisure. You know, they wanted to do a learning. I don't know why everybody started just coming. Well, they looked at it as an opportunity.
Do you want to do something?
I can so answer that as a parent. Like when you're tired of trying to teach your kids something, and because you're in this box as a parent-child, and you teach, and then your kid's like, oh, screw you. You know, they get tired of it. Right? So then it's like, oh, I need outside influence. So then you find something, you're like, oh, we do this anyway. We're going to the beach, and I hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've seen more and more parents doing that. And that's a really neat part.
I think we're going to have more over this whole COVID pandemic thing. So many, you know, families are stuck inside, and that's like what I love about our first segment too at National Geographic's with the book Kids versus Plastic. It's like there's all these activities to do. Then I know that maybe you can't do all the same things, you know, what you've been doing over the last years with, you know, Project Save Our Surf, but it is still in the minds of, like, if you're out there social distancing, pick some damn trash up if you can. Wear some gloves if you're worried because of COVID.
Right.
No, honestly, no, that's I have friends that are diligent on the Adopt a Highway cleanup program. They go out there, and I know people that have had to pick up, like, some weird purpley vibrating things. Seriously, I mean, they've had all kinds of things happen.
You know what?
God,
wear gloves. Just wear gloves. You're gonna go pick up
wear gloves. Wear your mask. It doesn't
wear
mean
gloves. Wear a mask.
you don't keep picking up. It really does everything. I mean, but we always the whole thing is it does start in the dirt and the beach. So there's the beach side, what you're doing, and you're right. Project Save Our Surf. You want to surf. You want to have that clean opportunity. Even Hawaii is dealing with this. You know, I don't know. I don't know one beach or surfing location that is not dealing with a pollution problem, be it climate change and harmful algal blooms, all
or whatever.
Kinds. Right. So I look at what you're doing as being a very global thing of like, oh, save our surf, because some areas you don't want to go in. You're going to be burned from the blooms, or or there's oil spills, or there's so many things affecting our water. But it's not only what's going on in the water, but it's what's going on the land that we can do to stop things now, immediately in our homes.
Absolutely. And just because we're on the lockdown with the pandemic, there is, and some of these, and looking at the results globally of the pandemic and the environmental results, which is probably the last thing on a lot of people's minds right now. However, one of the silver linings is that greenhouse gas emissions have gone down. There have been there's a lot less pollution. The air quality has gone up. There are a lot of wonderful things because people have stayed home that have happened. Positive things with the environment that as a result of less travel, as a result of
gas emissions,
less pollution. GHGs it's great. The waste from the pandemic and some toxic materials. That's higher. However, we can't be prepping soon enough for when we get back out, because as soon as we get back out, every kid is going to go to the beach and start flying, and the parents are too. Everybody's going to be like, "Oh my God, I've been on lockdown. Heck with this," and go to the beach and be throwing the bejesus out of their trash cans.
But can I just say this? As we're on the road traveling, this is what we see. As opposed to 30 years ago where you could see people throw trash out of their car, the only thing I see being thrown at cars is people with their cigarettes.
That's not true.
Right.
Stop it too.
And that's not true.
They throw their cigarettes out the car. They do. We see it all the time. They need to stop that too. Stop it. If you're smoking, that's your problem. Ash it out in your car. Quit flicking the cigarette butts out your car. Stop it.
Go flick something else.
Yeah, seriously.
No. I was just saying about going again. I said no. It's like no. It's not just that. It's the fast food. It's that fast food cigarette on the go mentality of, and I understand that. Move forward fast. I understand that.
But you don't have to throw it out the car.
But they do, and I've had all of this crap land on my windshield, and my windshield's tired. Stop it. Seriously.
That's true. That's so true. And that's what we find on beach cleanups is we find the micro particles of is mainly we find cigarette butts. We find tiny little minuscule pieces of styrofoam. We find fork tines, plastic fork tines. We find on the Santa Monica beaches still we find needles. And
Needles.
we find, there's
Wow.
still hypodermic needles. And I would anticipate there's probably more right now with a lot of the socioeconomic status being driven down with, and transience and homelessness being driven down with this. So I'm and drug use up. So I would anticipate that there would be more of that going on too. And bottle caps, but it's a small particles that end up going and shifting into those huge plastic, these becoming plastic continents that we have no idea how they have formed and why they're bigger than Texas, why they're plastic floating islands. It's insane. And people cannot fathom why there are 5 of them, and it's those little things of, it's like you said, like people throwing tiny little things and fast food containers. Yes, the lids. So, that stuff goes somewhere. It's the little things.
Yeah, because it mounts up. Like, we can be behind a car and the person with the cigarette feels it, and even when we're walking in a national park where they're all respectful of everything, they would never throw a plastic thing out, but they will leave their cigarette butt. Like, that's okay somehow. Cigarette butts are okay to leave anywhere, ever, any time of any day.
Well,
and I say,
all right. In closing, we have to go, ladies. Sorry, but I'm sorry.
Oh, wow, that was so fun.
I'm sorry, but we have to go. We have to go. We have music to play.
Shut it down.
And we have to go.
Shut it down.
I know. I feel like the person with the whip. I'm sorry, but I will not leave the whip on the beach. Take your whip home. Well, listen, Tana, it has been a pleasure. So the best thing I know, please keep us posted as you do cleanups, any kind of event going on with your project, Save Our Surf. Please keep us posted.
we'll help you.
Yes, anything we can do to help.
You can check it out on Facebook if anybody wants to check it out and see what the next upcoming events are. It's Project Save Our Surf on Facebook.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and everyone. We're gonna close this segment. We've got more music because we said we would play "Loving Our Land" with Wally Lauder. We'll do that.
Have to.
And so live listeners may not hear this, but we will play it. But we're going to play "Underwater, Above Water," and that is from the album "A Hawaii Interlude" by Makana. Makana, one of the best stand-up. If anybody stands up for anything, this dude does it in Hawaii. He stood up for everything politically. He stood up against Monsanto. He stood up against so many things, and still does, against anything that's negative to the land and to people. He is one of the most amazing musicians, slacky guitarist of Hawaii, and we're going to play Underwater, Above Water, and again, it's from his latest album, A Hawaii Interlude. So, Tana, you take care, and we'll talk to you as you do more things. You take care.
All my love to you, wonderful women. Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Take care. Here it is, A Hawaii. I'm like underwater. Here it is. Not the whole album. It's called Underwater, Above Water.